Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power of Eight. This week we are on Chapter 12, the Holy Water. My name is Jen Smith. Pollyanna Blanco is the co-host here, and we'll be talking about the Holy Water chapter and also giving some interesting updates of what's happened through the week, some mystical experiences, as well as just some actions we've taken here on the earthly plane to help our lives. So the Holy Water chapter, the beginning of this was a lot about the intention experiments and the wonderful things that happen whenever 8 people get together, send healing intentions to someone, what happens to the healing, and also the benefits of the recipient. And the latter chapter of the latter part of this chapter is all about water and the healing properties of water. So Pollyanna, with that, was there anything that really stuck out to you as you read through this chapter?
Thank you so much for asking, Jen. The power of sending intention to water and how it can actually change the water on a molecular structure. I mean, that's just jumping right into the science today with it, because as human beings, they were talking about, and a lot of us know this, we're 70% water, plants are 90% water. And of course, so basically in the planet, there's so much water on the planet. So this whole idea of, if we want to heal the earth, if we want to heal our environment, we have our outer environment, we also have our inner environment. And the talk about the studies that were done, I think it was Rusty who talked about studies with uh, intentions on water, like thoughts, emotions, feelings, and how that changed the structure. And so, really, the implications of this chapter are so profound, because those intentions, which sort of at first might sort of sound like on the thought level, there's this like lattice work or network of energy transfer that happens on so many levels than just the mental level. And I think this is very important as a reminder for all of us, because deep down inside, on a soul level, I feel like we already know this. It's just we have these moments that kind of reactivate a remembrance in us. And that's what this chapter did for me. How about for you? What stood out for you in this chapter?
Well, the beginning here, before we get to the water part, was all of the different things that happened with people through the healing intentions. And I can relate to each of these because um, with just in the healing room, I've came across each one of these situations where, the healing energies, one of the recipients had neck pain and that got relieved. One of them had a tremor in the right hand, which had some healing afterwards. Backache, pain, or hip joint pain. Energy healing is wonderful for your joints and those type of pains. Left knee, and then it goes on. And I mean, I've had all of those happen in the healing room. I mean, have been your experiences? Has it been similar?
Yes, definitely. The relief from discomfort, physical discomfort. One of the things when I studied Reiki on multiple occasions was how often things start way beyond the physical first. By the time they land in the physical, they've gone through the different layers of, our thoughts and our emotions into the physical body. And even, just how we unwind all of that on the healing table. Like I've witnessed people, you know, feel relief from this physical discomfort as well as emotional and mental discomfort, because it's all interconnected. Like it's not separate. And even my own experience receiving healing from others, or doing healing work on energy work on myself, I feel like a lot by the time it gets to the physical, uh, those other aspects, the emotional, especially the emotional, has a big, yeah, impact on the body. Is like our signaling system. It's the system that says, note to self, note to self. Um, there's something going on. And what I think we often tend to do in our sort of mainstream culture up until now, although I believe that and trust that that is changing day by day, moment by moment, with so many people awakening, is we tend to um, do one of a number of things, like make the body wrong, uh, create even more of a divide between, see ourselves as somehow separate from the body, and the body is this burden that we have to deal with, and it's not our friend, as opposed to making it our friend, befriending it, seeing that, even if it's something as simple as, weight gain, that it's because there's certain toxins perhaps in the cells that the body doesn't want to release into the body, because it could create an overload of toxins. So it's actually storing the fat to protect you. So it's having different conversations and a different relationship to the body. I feel like energy work is something that is that bridge where it allows us to get out of that fight or flight, feel calm, and then be able to tune in and listen to the messages in our body, and also just be open and relaxed and receptive enough, even if we're just simply there present, to not be in that fight mode, to be in that open receptivity mode. So yeah, I've seen it on the table working with other people, like I've seen numbers go down, in terms of inflammation in the body. I've I've seen that from working on my mom, actually, because she's been on high dosage prednisone, and her numbers have gone down with regular Reiki treatments. I've also witnessed just internal strife, is how I want to call it, right? It's a combination of maybe anxiety, overthinking, worry, pain loops, that kind of just relaxes and allows some spaciousness. And in the spaciousness, the messages can come through, the inspiration, the aha moments, the insights. And then it can be, the energy work can help to reintegrate it into a new experience of being with the self.
Yeah, so people who are listening who really understand energy healing can understand what we're saying. People who may be new to it, I always try to explain to them, like, we have the physical body, and then we have energy, lots of layers around us, our aura or our biofield. So, the signal with, you have the emotional body and then the mental body. So if you can take care of all of this energy around you before it gets into the physical pain. And I kind of visualize this as, I don't see this, I can feel it. But, if something is in the mental body and it just keeps moving closer and closer and closer to the physical body. So we're gonna have some things in our energy field if we have some worries and doubts and we internalize it, but we can release those. So it's better to really work on that mental and emotional state before you let it just sit there and not take care of it. That's whenever you start experiencing physical pains. I think people can understand that, can kind of visualize that, just as, because we think in terms of pictures and visualization. So that's just a way to help people understand what's going on. So not masking the pain we have in our body, but to what's going on here, and then releasing that.
Yeah, I love that. It's a beautiful, elegant, simple way to like express it and help people to understand that better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I love what you had to say about all that in the healing room, because it's so true. But also, it goes on to explain not only on the physical part, but in these intentions, and because of how powerful we are with manifestation, and how our thoughts can become things. There was healed relationships. Um, People had self-forgiveness. There was lives that were healed, and a renewed life purpose. So those were some of the things in the book. Um, it also mentioned that there was a recipient, Hilda, who she was going through cancer treatments, and she was able to come off her medication uh, that she was supposed to be on for the next 10 years. There's people who had manifested money. And I love that part, because it's like what we believe and truly believe is what we can manifest into our world. So I did this yesterday. I have this belief that whatever, like money is just energy. So whatever I give will be received somehow, but there's no expectations on where it's going to come from. You give freely and then you graciously receive. That's what my mentor Bob said. You give and then you graciously receive. But that happened like all in one day yesterday for me. I was going to, and it's just a simple little story, but it's just I love the simple stories of life because this is how it happened. And then whenever you have all these stories add up, it can be a really fun time, while we're living out our lives. But there was someone, I was going to the store to get some paint actually. So it was like Lowe's. And there was a guy who was pushing his cart across the road and I was driving slowly, getting ready to park, and he stopped me. And he said, he asked if I could help him out. He said, "Can you help me out?" He said, I am just looking for, I just need a meal tonight and I'm just looking for some money." And he's like, "You can look into my eyes. I'm not lying to you. Like this is," and I said, so I gave him some money so he could go purchase a meal. And then I went on and went shopping, and then I was coming back home and I remembered I had to stop somewhere else to had to pick up dog food. And whenever I went into that store, the amount that I had given that guy, there was someone who gave me a coupon for that exact same amount for my purchase. So I was like, "Oh, well, thank you." So things like that happen. And I wasn't expecting it. Actually, I just gave it to him and I wasn't expecting anything at all. But then that just happened to come in that day. So there's all sorts of small things like that happen that I just think are great.
That's a great story. I can relate to it also because this past week I had another little story like that happen with I did a scuba dive for the first time in 20 plus years. And I was sharing that with you before we got onto the show. And it was a breakthrough moment on many levels. But in terms of like that, what you're sharing right now, the alignment, one of the things that had happened beforehand was I decided to get really calm and really clear on my intentions and take full responsibility for them. And so that meant I was responding rather than just saying, "I'll see where the wind blows me," and reacting to things. Like I got really clear. And when I got really clear about my choice, then a lot of things that beforehand, fears that had come up, insecurities, hesitancies, doubts from myself and others around me, sort of almost like it's reminding me of those random number generators that the Institute of Heart Math talks about, where all of a sudden, when people focus on a single intention, which is like the peace and the power of eight experiments, all of a sudden the numbers become non-random. They become, the opposite of that. They organize themselves. And so what organized itself on a very literal level was normally it would have been a big boat, which has its advantages, but it would have been a slow boat, would have been a very long day. But at the end of the day, in hindsight, looking back, it was nothing short of miraculous. We got a small boat, which was a quick boat, which because the other boat needed to be repaired, which almost never happens. And the other people on the boat, it was such a funny soul mirror. The woman, there was a couple, the woman hadn't dove in 20 years. And she was very relaxed and down to earth. The very first dive site we went to was a relatively shallow dive site where you could see the bottom, no walls or anything like that. And I had set the intention that I'm going to have a safe, fun, relaxed, calm experience diving, not only for myself, but for everyone on board. And it couldn't have gone more smoothly and more happily and better. And so again, I feel like that was a big reminder about the power of our intentions and where we put our focus and where we put our attention, because there was a lot of noise and I could have gotten distracted by the noise. But instead, like you were sharing with your story, you know, you made a singular choice, a singular decision, and you owned it, and then you released, you know, that and went on with your day, and then the day mirrored beautiful things back to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the intentions are important. I try to start my day with just like flow and ease today. Just go with the flow, stay in that connection, you know, and because that's when all these miraculous things happen. Small things, big things. It's wonderful. Um,
Jen, it's fun that we're talking about holy water today
yeah.
when you just said that, because that is the flow and the ease. It's that allowing space for that divine presence to be ever present and to have that, like, I've been hearing this message recently too. And it was kind of funny because I realized it kind of got a little inverted when I was underwater, but that's just a funny aside. But don't look down, look up, right? And and it's this whole, and I'm joking when I was underwater because I didn't really want to look up, but just that, I think that was the universe playing and having a sense of humor with me. Um, that's how I'm going to choose to see it, right? It's this idea of, I feel like just knowing our intention, our truth, and being open after that, like not, I think what I want to just remind people listening who are maybe newer to this, that what we are saying is, yes, have an intention, but don't be attached to an expectation around the intention. An intention is not the same as an expectation. Just want to make that discernment for people listening who might maybe think they're the same thing. Because I've also, like all of us, done the opposite, right? And then we try to control things and then get those emotions and thoughts that come in with disappointment and confusion and frustration, cancel, clear, delete. And instead, it's getting clear about, what do I want in this moment? What is my soul, for the highest good of all, calling me forward, to claim, and how do I want to show up? How do I want to serve? What do I want to be open and available to and for and as? And then set that intention, and then just trust that it's been heard by the divine, and then relax into that trust, release it. In other words, surrender, knowing it's already done. And if it's already done, it's already, if you can, this is something I firmly believe too. And it happened before the dive too, because I kept seeing myself going off the back of the boat where you fall in with the tank. And that was something in the past that I was always afraid to do. But every time I saw myself doing it, I was so relaxed and trusting of the water and calm. And that little voice kept saying, I know I can do it. I know I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And it was there quietly in the background through all the other static on the line. And I also felt into, if I just stay where it's more comfortable in one sense, what would that be like? So I kind of felt into it, and it felt kind of like tight. And when I was like, what if I were just to embrace those messages, those visions, those knowings, what does that feel like right here and now? And it felt so much more expansive.
Yeah.
And that felt like the flow. And it wasn't that I was attached to it going like that. It was just that I was open to embracing in this now moment how good that felt. And when I did that, then I was able just to stay literally moment by moment, and yeah, and just stay, not get ahead of myself, not look back, just be here now.
Right.
Yeah.
What you described, and I often say this to people, is you have to get out in front of it. So whenever you were describing, falling into the water with your tank on, like I can vision that. I can see that, and getting out ahead of it, getting your energy ahead of it would be visualizing that in that calm, peaceful state. And then whenever you're actually there doing it, that's what's going to happen. So, I mean, that's a great way to do things for people if they're stepping out and doing something a little outside of their comfort zone, is to get out ahead of it with your energy and visualize it just as you had explained. I love that. So I just wanted to go into that a little bit more because that was coming into my awareness. So
I really like that term you used to getting out ahead of it.
yeah, yeah. Creating that good scenario, right?
And I just want to add one more thing that just popped in really briefly. And I think for a lot of us, if we're completely honest with ourselves, we have flashes, we have knowings. And that's often what gets us excited and motivated to step into new areas in our life.
Mhm.
And that that's kind of like that proverbial carrot, right? That's dangling there, right? And the key is to really, it's for me in my own experience, and everyone's unique. It's always been like a glimmer, like it's something that just flashes and it feels, it's like a bolt of lightning. It's a knowing. It's like, oh, I just got a little sneak preview of something
Mhm.
and I can't hook into it. I can't, like this. I'm not meant to, but I am meant to see it and to let that knowing guide me in the moment without living in the future in this now moment. What's my next right and perfect step? Please guide me. Like I'm, I'm open to, because that's the other piece. It's the patience piece also, right? Because if you're in the water, gosh, I feel like I could do a meme. Everything I ever learned about life, I learned from scuba diving. I was joking about that the other day because you have to breathe constantly. The golden rule in scuba is never hold your breath, which I think is a golden rule in life. And yet, how often do we do it, right? In the face of uncertainty and new things. Breathe slowly and deeply. And just another thing is just to really be here now. Like you have to be able to respond to the moment. You have to be able to to equalize literally, though each, shift that you move through as you go deeper into experiences, right? You to be able to notice, okay, there's a little bit of discomfort here. Not like you were saying, don't gloss over it, don't push it aside, don't pretend it's not there and keep going, right? Stop, pause. It's not a race. Check in, maybe go back up a little bit, notice the difference in the feeling. And then when that feels calmer and better, then continue to go down with a new awareness, deeper and deeper. And so I'm like, okay, this is starting to be like a metaphor for, really how to live life. And it was funny because the instructor that I went with, he said to me, now you just have to do this on land, you know, because I think, when it's that's the beauty of expansion, right? Just carrying over these practices, whether it's on the meditation cushion into our how we have dinner with our family,
Mhm.
or show up at work, or we're doing, a sport or something, and how those transferable skills can, being
Right.
in a flow peak state can
Sure.
support us in other areas. Yeah.
Mhm. So water, all about water. Diving into the water. I'm so happy that you got to do that this week. There were some things about how the molecular structure of water can be changed. And there's so many studies on this that proves that this happens whenever you put healing energies into water. They do it with sound. In the book, there was, energy healers that would put intentions into water and can change the structure of it to make it more pure. And I love that because at home, what I do is I have this large rack, this which my mother-in-law bought me. I might have talked about this in a
I don't think so. I'm
no,
curious.
okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't drink out of our tap water because to me, it doesn't taste good at all. So we buy bottled water. So I buy lots of bottled water. And on this rack, like right whenever you're walking out, we always walk to the garage when we're leaving. I have it right there. So it's easy to grab the water and drink it on the way out. And I think being hydrated and drinking lots of water is important. So I always take out all the bottles and I put them on this rack. And it's a rack. It holds four racks all the way across. I don't know, to hold probably 100 bottles. And I line them all up there and I do an energy healing. I just put the energy healing into the water on all of those bottles. And that way, when the family grabs a bottle, it'll be all nice and conditioned for them with the good
Mhm.
energies in it. And yeah, I do that. I do that regularly every time, every time I fill that up.
That's a beautiful example of how energy work
Hmm.
is, something that has a very practical application to everyday life, even, just your cooking, your water, all kinds of things. Like you making the bed, you
Yeah.
know, it's true. And I mean, that's something I very consciously do too. And the it's funny, I don't like tap water either. The taste of it kind of feels off. And at one point, I had a friend who had this, it looks like a little cone or whatever. And it's because in the book, they were talking about structured water. And I just pulled it under the tap. And it's the way water, simply put, it's the way water flows over rocks. It restructures it molecularly. And then with restructured water, whether it's through sound, energy healing, intention, or some sort of um, internal, sort of physical path that it moves along, what it does is your body is able to absorb more minerals from it, and so and absorb more water because sometimes when water, well, she also talks about Dr. Um, Emoto, right? Who, if people aren't already familiar with his work, definitely check it out, right? Because his work is so fascinating. He's been featured in documentaries before too, and they were talking about World Water Day and a very famous lake in Japan, and how similar to the peace experiments, sending healing intentions to the water there, because he's a big believer in what we've just been talking about, how the thoughts and emotions and the physical structure of water are all interconnected. And he did studies where he took under a special type of microscope frozen particles of water that had different messages put onto bottles of water, from more negative things to more positive things. And then when he took those water molecules and looked at them under these special microscopes, the ones that had received love and joy and positive messages, healing messages, had this beautiful crystalline structure, almost like snowflakes. They were so beautiful. He took photographs of them. I remember
I've seen
have
it.
yeah. And then the other ones were more murky and irregular and misshapen. So again, it goes back to, how are we talking to ourselves? What thoughts are we thinking? Because we're bodies of water as well as
Mm.
larger bodies of water like lakes and oceans. So how are we caring for the water in our lives? And that is that divine creative flow. If we want to be in the flow, it's, what is flowing through us, on many different levels, out pictures in this way. So it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I liked how you weaved that all together. It was perfect. In energy, I mean, just being energy is so important. Just being in the good energy of anything you're doing. I talked about the putting healing into the water that I have, but people can do this at home very easily, just by intentions, just holding your water with your pure intentions of, good energy. Prayer. Prayer. Oh, I've seen where people measure the energy when they pray over food. and when they pray over water. So, it's the same thing as sending healing intentions. You're sending those positive healing intentions with your prayer into food and water.
And you can even play a game too. Like you can send gratitude, like you were saying, intentions, prayer, gratitude into your water and have 2 glasses of water. Have some fun with this. Have one that maybe you have maybe three. I remember doing this experiment with a friend of mine who's a energy healing facilitator here on the island. And she did this at one of the yoga studios here, where we did different experiments with water and then some with yeast also. And it was so much fun. I think that was back in March that we did it. And just, sending the positive energy to one glass, having a control glass like somewhere else off in the corner, another one where there's no positive intention sent to it, and then maybe another one where maybe there's worry or something else sent to it. And just see if you notice, just hold it, be present with it, see if you notice any differences in temperature, taste, how easy it is to swallow. Um, the color, even if the color changes, if the odor changes, like use your 5 senses just to notice, and sometimes those are the fun, playful moments with what we've been sharing. And water is such a good example of it, that if you're curious about energy work and you're wondering, is there something to this? This is a great place to start.
Yeah, I love that because you would be able to notice the difference in taste or
Yeah.
whatever else you notice with the 5 senses. Same thing with plants. If you have 2 plants, you can send one loving, have one a control and send the other one loving healing intentions. And that plant will prosper and grow much quicker and fuller. And that's just small experiments people can do at home. These are documented everywhere that people have done this. So yeah, it's we can make our home our own experimentation lab.
Exactly. And that's what makes life really beautiful too, is if you start just, I love that you mentioned the plants. It's like when you think about your environment at home, just how are you showing up for it? Like first it starts with how we care for our inner environment, because when we, and then it ripples out from there to all these different ways. And that's something in my own journey that I've become more and more present to. It's like the energy of places, and that we have choices, and that we don't have to just, be anywhere, or that we can shift the energy in a place, or we can, and it starts with, like you were saying, starting the day off with intentions, and being open and being curious, and following what brings us, joy and happiness and connection. And then something shifts, and it's like all the signals that we get, whether it's in our body form, mentally, emotionally, these are become, rather than the truth, they become just like steering devices, like a steering wheel on a car, to say, okay, keep going straight. No, go a little bit to the right. No, now almost like a compass, even maybe more than a car, so that you can start to navigate through the different experiences that are showing up in your life, and know that you are the one who's steering, or using the compass, as opposed to the car driving you, or the compass telling you where you must go. And this is, I think, one of the greatest applications of some of this, in our everyday lives. How can this is something in my own journey I've been learning to and playing with a lot too.
Oh yeah, it is. It's interesting. It's interesting to use your own life and for me, like just being aware of what's coming into my life experiences, because that's what we're creating. And
Yeah,
it's very evident that, for me, the more I have paid attention to it, and very much this year a lot, just all the little details of what's coming in. You had mentioned to take care of ourselves first, right? And that's so important because you got to take care of yourself first before you can help other people too.
yes.
And in the book, one of the things she'd mentioned in this caught my attention was when they were trying to make sure that it was a scientific experiment, that some of the energy healers, they didn't want them buy the equipment because they put off She said a radiation. I don't really like that word, but it's more of a frequency.
Yeah.
A frequency that could affect that could affect the machinery and not have the valid results that they wanted. So, but that's true too, because the more you focus on yourself, the higher vibration you're in, that higher frequency you're in, and that can be recorded as well.
And I'm getting an intuitive hit right now that someone watching this, or maybe a few people potentially watching this at some point, I heard, I'm gonna trust this right now. There's someone out there, and I just want to reassure you, it's not selfish. It's self-responsible. We have a lot of programming that many of us, myself included, have had to unwind about, is this selfish, and make a discernment, because we thrive in belonging as human beings and in community. The community within ourselves first is a community. It's not just, it's multifaceted, it's multidimensional. Like, we've been sharing this since our very first, top book chat, that, we are physical, emotional, mental, spiritual beings with consciousness. And so that's like having a whole, boardroom discussion or family dinner, inside of ourselves, with all these different, layers to who we are. And so the clearer, we can each be about, where are we taking choices from? Are we taking them from a part of us that's scared, a part of us that's wounded, a part of us that is inspired, a part of us that is, and ultimately, through the light and love of our awareness, bring them all into this reunified whole of, self-love and self-acceptance. Then it's, life starts to get easier over time. We start to become this one stream, rather than this, kind of spring break wild boat party. It's like, and it gets more unified and more streamlined and more focused and more integrated. And that's what energy healing can help us with too, is to get back into the flow of who we are, and to love and accept ourselves, and to turn down the noise and dissolve the static on the line that's keeping us from doing that. Because that's where it's very self responsible. The message is about it being selfish, focusing on the self. If we're going to be able to respond to other people, we first need to be able to respond to ourselves, rather than react. So this is how one of my Reiki teachers had said to me, when you do something in alignment with a knowing of your highest good, it's for the highest good of all. So
Yeah, I love how you describe that. And when we can come to fit all these pieces together of who we are in this positive, uh, self-loving way, it positively affects everyone else around us too. Because our responses are different. Our responses are different because it's coming from that place of a divine connection.
yeah, because I think sometimes two people have received programs or belief systems around, especially for women, I would say, around, it's better to give than to receive, in the sense, but that gets distorted. It is important to give, and then there's a receiving and there's a flow. However, sometimes that gets distorted into giving to get, or giving, and that's the attachment piece that I was mentioning earlier. And it becomes, when everyone else out there is okay, then I'll be okay. And then that's an imbalanced energetic state and frequency to be in, because there's too much interference on the line, right? One of the greatest acts of self-love is to really notice it all without judgment, and to begin to get clearer and clearer about what keeps us in the flow and what distracts us from the flow. And that's, thinking back to the chapter, Holy Water, right? What makes something sacred, what makes something divine, It's that we come to it with a reverence, with an awe, that it's all serving a greater good, a greater purpose. And that's very, very different from anything else that we might have been programmed to believe, that is just about gratification, or because that's very reptilian brain, and this is beyond the mind of form, right?
Yeah. It's all so simple.
Yeah.
So simple.
It
And
is.
our human brains can overcomplicate things sometimes.
Yeah.
Just go with the flow, do the right thing, give value to people, and just flow with joy and ease.
Yes.
Mhm.
I love how you said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything else any updates that happened this week, or anything that you're aware of for that people might
Well,
be in?
I feel like, and again, this is something that I feel it, and I'm noticing it in myself, and also just it's been informed, and I've got to give credit where credit is due to Master Lady Kira Ra, spiritual teacher I've been following, that we've both been following for many years.
Mhm.
Um, Tomorrow is a really, really important peak up level day. And with that awareness in mind, um, I've been noticing that there is more spaciousness. I've been noticing that it's almost like I see it sort of energetically, like unzipping a suit and seeing it fall off, unzipping another suit and seeing it fall off. And it's getting back to that essence self, that soul essence self. And I feel like the key this week in my own journey, and I feel like this is something that is maybe someone needs to hear, is creating the spaciousness to receive, and allowing the mind of form to relax enough, reassuring the body so that it can trust enough. And just as you said before, Jennifer, keeping it really simple, like just knowing it is simple, intending it is simple. Because I've been sensing over the summer, that actually since the end of July, that we're all, if we want to recognize it, on a new timeline. It's just what that requires is our receptivity, and it's like, to bring it down to earth would be like ordering a meal at a restaurant, like a hamburger or something like that, and and then pushing it away when the waiter or waitress brings it, and saying, why isn't it a quiche? Why isn't it a quiche?
Yeah, yeah, that's good, because how often have we done that before? I think we all have experienced that. We, you know, being able to receive, why is that so hard for sometimes? It's easier for me now because I just try to stay in the flow. Um, but it's a receiving on all levels, from both worlds, from here and from our spiritual guides, guardians, angels, and being open for that too. That's I think that whenever we talk about mystical experiences, that's what it seems like, you know, but I also kind of relate that to just the miracles that happen on earth too. I think it's both. And I think we can live in, well, we can absolutely be living both worlds at the same time. And that's when the miracles are really, really great. I had a mystical experience. I wrote down the day it was, but this was like would have been Friday. It would have been last Friday. And it was very much my angels, my guides, my guardians, um, where they were healing my feet.
Mm, beautiful.
And it was like they had them. even like wrapped up, and my feet were so hot because I'm here too, so I can feel it. My physical body, like my feet were so hot, especially probably around my energetics. And so they just kept rubbing my feet. And every time they would rub my feet, then they would feel okay. And then there was instructions on what I needed to do over the next 2 hours. So it felt like a deeper cell cleansing. That's what it felt like to me. And those are the mystical experiences that you have to be ready to receive and to trust. And it just makes you go, wow, wow. We are so loved and protected on all levels. And yeah, so it was really, really good.
I'm so
And
happy you had that experience, you know.
yeah, yeah. And that's trusting, because when you go into those experiences, because it just doesn't start like that. I mean, there's a little bit of dialogue and conversation. You have to be open and you have to trust. And you can't, and this is where no fear. Because if something like that may be unknown to us, and we introduce fear, then for me, it doesn't go on. Like then you just pop out of the meditation.
And that's a good point because another way I think we introduce fear is trying to understand it with the logical mind,
Yes.
to pin it down, to kind of attach something to it, like a meaning or something like that. And now in my own journey, I just don't. When I receive like a download, a message, an inkling, it often comes to me in the form of an inkling. Why don't you maybe do this or go here or write this down right now? Or, it's like I just trust it. And if something in my plans shifts or changes, I just go, oh, interesting. We're going this way now. And as long as it feels expansive and joyous, and that's how I use that navigation system, right? And, I think it's available for all of us. So it's just like you said, how does it look in application in day-to-day life? You gave such a beautiful example, with your own experience this week, mystical experience.
Yeah, and the trusting part, right? Whenever we get messages or we're shown things, we don't always know what's going to happen after that. It's trusting that we received it. I can give you another example from about 3 weeks ago, where I was shown my office, like because it's like a movie in my head, like that's what I'm shown. And I knew that I had to come to my office and spend time working. That's all I knew. But that's what happens whenever I'm in this flow of the energy, and I'm working, and I'm here working. I'm in the present moment, working on whatever it may be for my energy healing, my service to the world. It could be, brochures, it could be um just different things, ideas. But then that's when more things come in. So it's just trusting, yeah, go there, going that next step, and seeing what happens, what comes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been such a great conversation today. I've enjoyed it. And this chapter is rich. So if you haven't already gotten the book, The Power of Eight, please go and get it. As you can tell, we've been really enjoying it. Really, really, really enjoying it. And there's more to come. I'm just peeking ahead. Next week's chapter is chapter 13, Leaky Buckets.
Leaky buckets. Sounds interesting.
It does, it does. And, also, uh, Jen, did you want to mention something that's coming probably September, an opportunity through these Power of Eight shares that we've been co-creating together with the help of Spirit, just to get people, give them a little bit of a teaser, a little like a moose bouche, or like a little sneak preview of what we've got cooking.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I hopefully we can get it out next week, but we do have a landing page. It's going to be on meetthelight.com /power of eight. And there, if you are interested in being a part of a circle, like a healing intention circle, a group of 8 people, you can sign up for that. If you are someone who's in need of healing, we're going to be taking one person at a time. You can fill out a form for that wants to be part of the recipient of the Power of 8 healing group that we have. We just ask that you give us feedback every week on how your condition, whatever the healing condition that you submit, how that's working out for you. We'd like to at least have, 4 weeks so we can see, because we'll have weekly intentions for that recipient for 4 weeks. We just require feedback so we can continue, and we'll continue that service for free, one person at a time, for as long as we're doing this. And I expect we'll be doing this a long time because this is a very joyful project for me. And I love what we're doing here. So
So thank you for sharing all of that. I'm really excited to be on board with you, Jen, and whoever else feels the calling, the soul calling to join us, because this is, this is where we amplify the joy, and we just, this is the new earth. The new earth is here. And it's just like, if you want to really give yourself the gift of receiving that, then this is one of those opportunities where you can continue to expand and continue to discover more and more of who you are. As you were saying, you were both human and spirit in human form. Your cosmic humanity is what really this is inviting you to embrace and get comfy with. So on that note, I've really enjoyed everything today with you, Jen. I always enjoy our conversations. Thank you to those of you, if you enjoyed our conversation too. We encourage you to comment and like and share this video so that it can serve someone else who would benefit from it as well too.
yeah, very good. Well, thank you, Pollyanna. I appreciate your time. I always enjoy these talks, and I'll see you next week. All right.
Looking
Thanks,
forward to it.
everyone.